I think the 1980s Nancy Drew Files series could do a better job with its book titles. Sure, they're dramatic, but I would prefer descriptive titles, like these ones. High School Murder. The Missing Musician. High School Murder Again. The Awful Book. Avalanches Cure Amnesia. Book number 6, Whitewater Terror, is arguably the first book in the series to have a good descriptive title. It was first published in December 1986. The premise of the book is that George has won 4 tickets to a whitewater rafting trip in Montana. She doesn't remember entering any contest, but who cares? It's a free vacation! George takes her cousin Bess, and Nancy takes her boyfriend Ned. The first chapter gives us a minor recap of the 2 previous books in the series. Continuity! Remember this continuity nod because I'm going to mention it later. The group flies to Montana where they find a rental car and instructions on how to get to the river. The road they take leads off a cliff, but Ned manages to stop the car before they crash and die. They find the driving danger barrier hidden in the bushes nearby, so you know it's not an accident. Somebody wanted to kill them. I would go home at this point, but our heroes continue. They walk down the pathway and meet the other rafters. Like George, everyone won free tickets for the trip, but none of them remember entering a contest. To make things even more suspicious, the locals have never heard of the rafting company before. The owner of the obviously fake company is Paula Hancock. Paula is angry to see Nancy. Nancy recognizes Paula from somewhere, but she can't remember where. The other leader of the trip is Max No Last Name, who is basically a rewrite of Luke from book number 3. That is, he's a hunky athlete who is still haunted by a death from his past, and Nancy's friend becomes romantically attached to him, too romantically attached to realize he could be dangerous. Hey, speaking of Luke from book 3, what happened to him? For the past 3 books, we're told that George and Luke are still a couple. In this book, he never gets mentioned. That's kind of odd. Why didn't George invite her boyfriend along on this trip? She had 3 extra tickets. Paula orders Nancy to be the first person inside one of the rafts, and the raft instantly gets loose. Nancy is carried downstream, where she barely manages to steer away from some dangerous falls. She also avoids being attacked by gunshots, which turn out to be fireworks. By now, readers should have the premise of the book figured out. It's not really a mystery novel. It's more of an action book, where the author tries to kill Nancy as many times as possible. I suspect the author is a culprit from one of the previous books. When the group has lunch, Nancy is almost mauled by a bear. Not long after, Max's raft is destroyed at Dead Man's Falls, and Bess almost drowns. Why? She took off her life vest because it wasn't pretty enough. Ugh. I like you, Bess, but you're an idiot. Paula's raft is destroyed that night, and as Ned says, they're really up a creek now! Ba-dum-tsh! The group has to climb up a gorge and walk to the nearest ranger station on foot. Paula gives the group's compass to Bess, so she can steal it and make Bess look bad. Max notices, and he asks to speak with Paula privately. They go off by themselves, and after a while, Paula screams for Max to stop. While all of the rafters watch, Paula's body goes flying off the 50-foot cliff, and she dies in the waters below. Don't worry though, she's not really dead. It turns out that surviving a 50-foot cliff dive is really easy in the Nancy Drew universe. When the group camps for the night, Nancy is almost crushed by a gigantic rolling boulder. She also has a close call with a huge rattlesnake in her blanket. I suspect the author wrote this section after watching that Indiana Jones movie. The next day, Max stumbles out of the woods when the group is hiking. Max is innocent. The truth is that Paula faked her own death on the cliffside. She threw Max off the cliff, not the other way around. The rafters got it backwards because no one noticed the falling body was the wrong gender. Sure, I believe that. How does Max go about proving he's not a murderer? He pulls out a club and knocks Nancy unconscious. Then he ties her up so she can't escape. Oh, Max, you are not helping your plea for innocence here. Nancy breaks the ropes on a rock and knocks Max out with her karate moves. She reunites with the others and they hightail it to the ranger station. Paula is waiting for Nancy at the fire tower there, and we get an explanation. The contest and the entire rafting trip was a fake. It was all a trap so Paula could get revenge on Nancy. Why? Paula is related to the culprit that Nancy caught 2 books ago. That's why there was a big continuity nod at the beginning of the book. Okay, I'm lying. Paula is related to a culprit who has never been mentioned before, and it's a huge letdown. It would have been so much better if Paula's revenge plot centered around a character we know. What's the point of starting the book with a continuity nod, only to end the book with a revenge plot from an unknown culprit? Paula lunges at Nancy, but Nancy dodges. Paula falls over the railing and dies. For those of you keeping track at home, here's what that means. Fall off a 50-foot cliff? Easily survived. Fall off a 10-foot tower? Instant death. Max wraps up a few loose ends of the plot, and everyone goes home. The end. Post-book follow-up. There is not much mystery to this mystery book. The storyline is weak, and Paula's fake death is implausible. The author says that everyone mistook Max's body for Paula's because he was wearing her jacket at the time, but that's unrealistic. It's also unrealistic that he survives the huge fall, even though everyone watches the river and they don't see him resurface. It's further unrealistic that Max is able to climb the 50-foot gorge and make a 14-mile hike to the ranger station after such an ordeal. And, needless to say, it's unrealistic that Max violently attacks Nancy in order to prove he's not a killer. But, as I said earlier, this is an action book, not a mystery book. If you look at the book through that lens, it's pretty good. There's a lot of suspense and near-death escapes. There's also a sense of realism to the danger, because the majority of the near-death accidents are caused by nature. It's not attempted murder, it's Nancy trying to survive in the wilderness. That's much better than, say, Book 3, where Nancy dodged the murderer's attacks so many times in a row that it became ridiculous. I'm not sure if this is a rewrite of Book 3 or not. It seems odd that they would rewrite Book 3 so soon after it came out, but both books have a similar premise and an identical male suspect. Either way, what we have here is a case of the pseudo-remake being much better than the original. True, Paula's fake death was too far-fetched to believe, but it's still better than 9 foiled death attempts and an avalanche curing amnesia. I give Nancy Drew Files number 6, Whitewater Terror, a 7 out of 10.